Dr. Lee Hanna rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the glowing screens in the quiet lunar observatory. It was 3 a.m. Earth time, and the Deep Space Listening Station was running its usual scans of the galaxy. For 15 years, she had been doing this same job, searching for any sign that humanity was not alone in the universe. Most nights brought nothing but the endless whisper of cosmic background radiation and the occasional blip from a distant pulsar. Tonight felt different. A sharp beep from her main console made her sit up straight. The computer was detecting something unusual, an organized pattern cutting through the random noise of space. Hanna leaned forward, her heart beginning to race as she watched the data stream across her monitor. Numbers. Perfect mathematical sequences that could not possibly occur naturally. Prime numbers arranged in a pattern so precise that only an intelligent mind could have created them. This can't be real, she whispered to herself, double-checking her equipment. But the readings were clear. Someone, or something, was sending a message from deep space. She reached for her communication headset with shaking hands. "Control, this is Observatory 7. I need immediate verification on an anomalous signal." Within minutes, her comm system exploded with incoming calls. Dr. Kim Taejin from the Mars Research Station was shouting over the static. The Europa listening post was reporting the same phenomenon. Even the ancient Voyager probes at the edge of the solar system were picking up identical transmissions. "It's everywhere," Taejin's voice crackled through the speaker. "Every single detection array we have is receiving the same signal simultaneously." Hanna felt a chill run down her spine. Simultaneous transmission across such vast distances should be impossible. The laws of physics simply did not allow information to travel faster than light. Yet somehow this message was appearing at every human outpost at exactly the same moment. As more reports flooded in, the scope of the phenomenon became clear. The signal was not just reaching human technology, it was broadcasting from thousands of star systems across the galaxy. Ancient civilizations that should have no way to coordinate with each other were somehow sending perfectly synchronized messages. Dr. Kim Soo-jin, Earth's leading xenolinguist, arrived at the lunar station 6 hours later on an emergency transport. Her specialty was theoretical alien communication, though she had never expected to use her skills on an actual extraterrestrial message. "Show me what we have," she said, still breathing hard from the rapid journey through space. Hanna pulled up the decoded transmission on the main screen. The mathematical sequence was followed by a set of galactic coordinates, pointing to a location roughly 30,000 light-years from Earth. But it was the final part of the message that made both women fall silent. One word, written in perfect Korean. "Domangcho. Run." "How do they know our language?" Soo-jin asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's not the strangest part," Hanna replied, pulling up additional data. "Watch this." She showed how the same message was being broadcast in hundreds of different languages, some recognizable as Earth languages, others completely alien. Each transmission was perfectly tailored to its intended receiver, as if the senders had intimate knowledge of every civilization in the galaxy. "It's like they've been watching us," Soo-jin said. "All of us, for who knows how long." As they worked through the night analyzing every aspect of the transmission, more disturbing details emerged. The signal was not coming from one central source, but from thousands of different star systems. Each broadcast point corresponded to known locations of potentially habitable worlds, places where intelligent life might have evolved. "Look at this pattern," Hanna said, highlighting the transmission sources on a galactic map. "These aren't random locations. They're all civilizations, or at least they were." The implication hung heavy in the air. If these signals were coming from thousands of different alien species, why were they all sending the same desperate message? And if they were all telling humanity to run, what were they running from? Dr. Park Young-soo arrived from Earth's Emergency Council just as the first phase of analysis was complete. As the director of humanity's search for extraterrestrial intelligence, he had spent his entire career hoping for this moment. Now that it had arrived, he wished it had never come. "What's the official assessment?" he asked. Sujin looked up from her computer, her face pale with exhaustion and fear. Sir, based on the linguistic patterns and the synchronized nature of these transmissions, we believe we're looking at a galaxy-wide emergency broadcast system. Every advanced civilization out there is using their last remaining power to send the same warning. Warning about what? We don't know yet. But whatever it is, it's big enough to unite species that should have no way of communicating with each other, and it's coming our way. Outside the observatory windows, Earth hung in the darkness like a small blue jewel. For the first time in human history, they knew they were not alone in the universe. But instead of the joyful contact they had always imagined, they had received a message of terror from the stars themselves. The silence that followed was broken only by the steady beeping of incoming transmissions. The warning was still broadcasting, over and over, from thousands of dying worlds, across the galaxy. Run, run, run. But where could humanity possibly go when the entire galaxy was telling them to flee? Captain Park Min-ho stared out at the massive structure floating in the void before his ship. 3 months had passed since humanity received the mysterious warning, and now he was leading the first expedition to the coordinates provided in that terrifying message. His crew of 12 had volunteered for what everyone knew might be a one-way journey into the unknown. The thing they found was beyond anything humans had ever imagined. It looked like a small moon, but clearly artificial, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at for too long. Ancient metal surfaces reflected the light of distant stars, and strange symbols glowed faintly across its hull like a language, written in light itself. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures," reported engineer Choi Yuna from her station. "This thing is old, older than our entire solar system, but it's still running on some kind of power source." Park nodded, grimly. "Take us in slowly. If whoever built this could create something that lasts millions of years, we don't want to make them angry." As their ship approached the structure, massive doors began to open without any signal from the human crew. It was as if the ancient station had been waiting for them, expecting their arrival. The docking bay that revealed itself was perfectly sized for their vessel, despite being built by aliens who had never seen human technology. "Sir, this is impossible," whispered Communications Officer Song Ji-woo. "How could they know exactly what size to make the docking port?" "Maybe they didn't build it for us," Park replied quietly. "Maybe they built it for everyone." The crew put on their environmental suits and stepped into the alien station. The corridors were vast, with ceilings that disappeared into darkness above their heads. Strange lights activated as they walked, following their movement through the endless passages. The walls were covered with symbols and images that seemed to shift and change when nobody was looking directly at them. Dr. Lee Sun-hee, the expedition's xenoarchaeologist, was scanning everything with her equipment. "Captain, these corridors aren't designed for one species. Look at the multiple levels of handholds, the varying ceiling heights, the different-sized doorways. This place was built to accommodate hundreds of different alien body types." They walked for what felt like hours before finding the first archive chamber. The room was enormous, filled with thousands of glowing crystalline structures that hummed with stored information. As they approached, holographic displays began, activating around them, showing images and data from civilizations across the galaxy. "My God," breathed Dr. Kang Ji-hoon, the team's linguist. "These are historical records, thousands of them, each one documenting a different species, a different world." The hologram showed incredible diversity, beings made of gas and energy, silicon-based creatures that looked like living rocks, aquatic species with tentacles and fins, and countless others that defied human imagination. But as they studied the records more closely, a disturbing pattern emerged. Every single civilization had the same ending to their story. Each species had grown, developed technology, reached out to the stars, and then simply vanished. The final entries in every archive were identical: reports of strange signals, warnings from other worlds, and then silence. "Captain," Song called, out from across the chamber. "I'm detecting an active AI system. It's been dormant, but our presence seems to have triggered something." Before Park could respond, the air in the chamber began to shimmer. A figure appeared before them. Not quite. Solid but clearly present. It looked vaguely humanoid but was obviously artificial, a projection created by the station's ancient computers. "Welcome, humans," the figure said in perfect Korean. "You are the 247th species to find this place. You are also the last." The crew stood frozen as the AI continued speaking. Its voice carried the weight of countless ages, and its words filled them with growing dread. "I am the keeper of records, built by the first ones who created this warning network. For millions of years I have documented the rise and fall of civilizations across this galaxy. Each species follows the same pattern. They grow, they explore, they reach a certain level of technology, and then they are harvested." "Harvested?" Park asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. "The Devourers," the AI replied. "Ancient beings that feed on the life force of entire worlds. They move through the galaxy in cycles, consuming every advanced civilization they encounter. The warning network you detected was created by the last survivors of each species, using their final moments to warn those who would come after." The holographic displays around them changed, showing images of massive geometric entities moving through space like living ships. Wherever they went, star systems went dark, their planets stripped bare of all life. "But you humans are different," the AI continued. "Every other species responded to the warnings with logical preparations. They built defenses, created hiding places, developed evacuation plans. You are the first to respond with chaos and confusion." Dr. Lee looked up at the projection. "Is that bad?" "Unknown," the AI replied. "The Devourers predict and hunt based on logical patterns. Your unpredictable nature may be the only thing that has kept you alive this long." Through the station's vast windows, they could see the stars outside. But as they watched, some of those distant lights began to flicker and die one by one, as something vast and hungry moved through the galaxy toward Earth. The harvest had begun, and humanity was next on the list. Dr. Seo Mina had not slept in 3 days. Her eyes burned as she stared at the astronomical data streaming across her computer screens in the Seoul Observatory. What she was seeing should have been impossible, but the numbers did not lie. Stars were disappearing from the night sky. It started small. A few distant stars in the outer rim of the galaxy simply stopped shining. At first, the scientific community thought it was a natural phenomenon, perhaps massive dust clouds blocking the light. But as more stars vanished, the pattern became clear and terrifying. "Director Kim, you need to see this," Mina called to her supervisor, her voice shaking with exhaustion and fear. Director Kim Hyun-soo rushed over to her workstation. On the screen was a map of the galaxy with thousands of red dots marking dead stars. The pattern showed a wave of darkness spreading inward from the galaxy's edge, moving faster than should be physically possible. "This is not natural," Mina explained, pointing at the data. "These stars are not burning out or being blocked, they are being extinguished. Something is moving through space and turning off entire solar systems like someone switching off lights." Kim stared at the display in horror. "How fast is it moving?" "At this rate, it will reach our sector of the galaxy in less than 6 months. News of the dying stars spread quickly through Earth's scientific community and then to the general population. Panic began to set in as people realized that whatever had sent the warning message was now coming for them. World governments held emergency meetings, and humanity began preparing for the end of everything they had ever known. But while most people focused on the approaching darkness, Dr. Yang Junsu was making a different kind of discovery in his laboratory. As a xenoarchaeologist, he had been studying the alien records brought back from the ancient station. What he found in those archives would change everything. "Look at this," he said to his research partner, Dr. Choi Min-seo, as he pulled up holographic records from dozens of extinct civilizations. Every single species that received the warning message responded in exactly the same way. The records showed that when each civilization learned about the approaching threat, they immediately began logical, organized preparations. They built underground shelters, created evacuation fleets, developed new weapons, and established communication networks. Every response was carefully planned and efficiently executed. They all did the smart thing, Minseo observed. So why did they all die? That's exactly the question, Yang replied. But look at how humans have responded to the same warning. He brought up recent news reports from around the world. Instead of unified, logical action, humanity's response had been complete chaos. Some countries were building weapons, others were trying to negotiate with aliens that had not even arrived yet. Religious groups were claiming the end times had come, while scientists argued about whether to hide or fight. Social media was full of conspiracy theories, and half the population seemed to think the whole thing was fake. We're acting like complete idiots, Minseo said. Exactly, Yang replied with a strange smile. And that might be the only thing that saves us. Dr. Kang Soo-young, a behavioral psychologist brought in to consult on the crisis, was the first to understand what Yang had discovered. She stood before the Emergency Council of World Leaders, trying to explain a concept that seemed impossible. Every other species in the galaxy thinks logically, she said. When they face a threat, they respond with calculated, predictable actions. But humans are different. We act on emotion. We make irrational decisions. We do things that make no sense even to ourselves. The council members looked confused. How is that helpful? Asked one representative. Because the devourers hunt by predicting behavior, Soo-young explained. They have consumed thousands of civilizations by anticipating exactly how each species will respond to threats, but they have never encountered a species like us. Meanwhile, on the ancient alien station, Captain Park was learning more about humanity's unique nature from the AI keeper. The artificial intelligence had been studying human behavior through their communications and was reaching similar conclusions. Your species displays patterns I have never recorded, the AI told Park. Other civilizations respond to threats with unity and logic. Humans respond with division and chaos. You simultaneously prepare for war while trying to make peace. You build weapons while also building art. You are the first species to respond to certain doom by creating music about it. Is that good or bad? Park asked. Unknown, the AI replied. But in my database of 246 extinct civilizations, not one acted with such randomness. The devourers predict their prey by studying behavioral patterns. Your patterns make no sense. Back on Earth, as the wave of dying stars grew closer, humanity continued its chaotic preparations. Military forces prepared for battle while diplomats drafted peace treaties with aliens they had never met. Scientists worked on impossible weapons, while artists created monuments to human civilization. Some people partied like it was the end of the world, while others prayed in churches and temples. Dr. Lee Hanna, still monitoring deep space communications, detected something new in the alien signals. Hidden within the repeated warnings was additional data, tactical information, weapon designs, and battle strategies from all the civilizations that had tried and failed to fight the devourers. They're not just warning us, she realized. They're giving us their knowledge, everything they learned before they died. As the darkness in space grew closer to Earth, humanity stood ready to face an enemy that had never been defeated. But unlike every other species before them, humans would meet their fate with weapons in one hand and flowers in the other, with battle plans written on the back of love letters, and with a randomness that had never been seen in the galaxy. For the first time in cosmic history, the devourers were about to encounter something they could not predict. Admiral Jo Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the ancient alien station, now serving as humanity's first command center in deep space. Through the massive windows, he could see the approaching darkness that had already consumed half the galaxy. The wave of dead stars was only weeks away from Earth's solar system, and humanity was about to face an enemy that had never been defeated. But humans had made a decision that surprised even themselves. Instead of running or hiding like every other species before them, they chose to fight. It was a decision that made no logical sense, and that was exactly why it might work. Admiral, the fleet is assembled, reported Captain Park over the communication system. He had remained on the alien station to coordinate the defense, while his crew had returned to Earth to help build humanity's desperate war machine. What humanity built in those final months was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Using technology reverse-engineered from the alien archives and combined with human creativity, they created a fleet that defied every principle of military design. Ships were built in hundreds of different styles, with no standard patterns or consistent weapons. Some looked like flowers, others like abstract art, and a few resembled giant musical instruments. Lieutenant Commander Lee So-young piloted one of the strangest vessels in the fleet, a fighter craft that had been designed by a committee of engineers, artists, and a group of children from a Seoul elementary school. Its weapon systems were powered by emotional responses, literally growing stronger when the pilot felt anger, fear, or determination. "This is insane," she muttered to herself as she checked her instruments. "We're going to fight cosmic horrors, with ships that look like they were designed by people having fever dreams. That's the point." Admiral Joe's voice crackled through her headset. "Every other species built logical, efficient war machines. The Devourers learned to counter logical designs. But how do you counter something that makes no sense?" The first Devourer constructs appeared at the edge of the solar system like geometric nightmares made real. They were massive, perfectly symmetrical shapes that seemed to absorb light itself. As they moved through space, the very fabric of reality seemed to bend around them, and the few remaining stars in their path simply winked out of existence. Dr. Kim Taejin, monitoring the enemy from the research station on Mars, felt his blood turn cold as he watched the readings. "They're not just ships," he reported to the fleet. "They're like living mathematics, pure geometry given form and hunger." The Devourers had expected to find Earth's defenders arranged in logical battle formations, following predictable military tactics. Instead, they encountered something that had never existed in the galaxy's long history: organized chaos. Human ships attacked from every direction at once, with no apparent coordination or strategy. Some vessels charged straight at the enemy, while others retreated only to circle back and attack from behind. Fighter pilots ignored their commanders and followed their own instincts, making split-second decisions that surprised even themselves. Commander Park Ji-won led a squadron of ships designed to look like ancient Korean dragons, their hulls painted bright red and gold. Instead of focusing their fire on strategic targets, his pilots attacked whatever made them angriest, screaming battle cries in a dozen different languages as they dove into the geometric formations of the enemy. For everyone who ever looked up at the stars and dreamed, Ji-won shouted over the comm as his dragon ship breathed plasma fire at a Devourer construct. The enemy's response was immediate and devastating. Weapons that could destroy planets fired at the human fleet, expecting to sweep away the chaotic attackers in moments. But the humans were not where they were supposed to be. Ships that should have been destroyed had already moved to impossible positions, following flight patterns that obeyed no tactical doctrine. Lieutenant Commander Lee So-young found herself face-to-face with a Devourer construct the size of a small moon. Her emotional weapons were screaming with power, fed by her fury at everything. These creatures had stolen from the galaxy. Instead of retreating or following standard attack procedures, she did something that no military academy would ever teach. She laughed. "You want to eat everything beautiful in the universe?" she said into her comm, knowing the enemy probably could not understand her words but hoping they could feel her defiance. "Then choke on this." Her ship dove directly into the geometric heart of the construct, its weapons firing in patterns that matched her heartbeat, her breathing, her dreams of home. The collision should have destroyed her instantly, but something unexpected happened instead. The Devourer construct began to collapse, its perfect geometry disrupted by the chaotic energy of human emotion and unpredictability. The implosion created a chain reaction that spread to other enemy ships, their mathematical perfection unable to handle the complete randomness of human warfare. For the first time in cosmic history, a Devourer fleet was not just damaged, it was confused. These geometric entities had consumed thousands of civilizations by predicting and countering their logical responses. But humans were not logical. They were beautiful, chaotic, and impossible to predict. Admiral Joe watched from the command station as more human ships threw themselves into impossible attacks, each one following their own unique path through the battle. Artists, engineers, Soldiers and dreamers all fighting together in the most disorganized and effective military action the galaxy had ever witnessed. The impossible was happening. The wave of darkness that had consumed half the galaxy was not just being stopped. It was being pushed back by creatures who fought with music, poetry, and pure stubborn human will. Across the galaxy, ancient monitoring stations that had been silent for millions of years began to detect something new. The Devourers were retreating. Dr. Lee Hanna could hardly believe the readings on her screens. 6 months had passed since the battle that should have ended humanity, and the impossible was still happening. The wave of darkness that had consumed half the galaxy was not just stopped, it was reversing. "Look at this," she called to her colleague, Dr. Park Young-soo, pointing at the star charts displayed across the observatory wall. "Sector after sector is lighting up again. Not with the original stars, but with new signals, new civilizations." The victory against the Devourers had sent a shockwave across the galaxy that traveled faster than any radio transmission. It was a message of hope that reached every hidden bunker, every refugee station, every survivor who had been hiding in the dark corners of space for generations. On the ancient alien station, now bustling with activity from dozens of species, Captain Park watched through the massive windows as another group of refugee ships emerged from the asteroid field where they had been hiding. These were survivors of the Kalian civilization, aquatic beings who had been living in makeshift underwater colonies on dead worlds for over 300 years. Captain Park, the station's AI, informed him, "We are receiving arrival requests from 47 more survivor groups. The docking bays are at full capacity." Park smiled as he watched the strange collection of ships approaching the station. Some looked like crystals, others like organic pods, and a few defied any description at all. Each vessel carried the last remnants of civilizations that had once filled entire star systems. The message they had all received was simple but revolutionary. It had been broadcast in thousands of languages across every communication frequency. "The Devourers can be beaten. We fight." Dr. Yang Junsu was working in the station's archives, cataloging the stories of each arriving species. What he discovered amazed him. Every civilization had received the same warning that humans had gotten, but they had all responded with perfect logic and careful planning. They had built efficient defenses, created optimal evacuation procedures, and followed rational strategies, and they had all been easily predicted and destroyed. "The irony is incredible," he explained to Dr. Choi Min-seo as they reviewed another set of alien records. Their intelligence and logical thinking made them easy targets. The Devourers could calculate exactly what each species would do and plan accordingly. But now these survivors had learned something new from humanity's chaotic victory. Logic alone was not enough. Sometimes the universe needed a little madness to break impossible patterns. On Earth, Admiral Joe was coordinating the galaxy's first multi-species military alliance. Representatives from dozens of alien races had traveled to the human homeworld, eager to learn the secrets of humanity's success against the ancient enemy. "We want to understand your battle tactics," said Ambassador Zeth Kolar, a crystalline being whose species had been hiding in the outer rim for millennia. "Your victory defies all military science." "That's exactly the point," Joe replied with a laugh. "We didn't follow military science. Half our pilots were making up their strategies as they went along." The alien ambassador looked confused. "But how can you coordinate forces without logical planning?" "We don't coordinate," Joe explained. "We improvise. We let each person follow their instincts and emotions. We fight with our hearts instead of just our minds." Lieutenant Commander Lee So-young, now famous across the galaxy as the pilot who had destroyed the first Devourer construct, was training alien pilots in what humans jokingly called chaos warfare. Her students included gas-based beings, silicon creatures, and energy entities that existed as pure thought. "The key is not to think too much," she told her mixed class of alien students. "Feel what's right in the moment. Trust your emotions. Do something that surprises even yourself." A tentacled being from the aquatic depths raised what might have been a limb. "But emotions are inefficient. They lead to mistakes." "Yes," So-young replied with a grin. And mistakes are exactly what the Devourers can't predict or counter. Your mistakes might save the galaxy. Dr. Siomina had made another incredible discovery from her astronomical observations. The dead zones where the Devourers had consumed entire civilizations were showing signs of new life. Not the original species. They were gone forever. But something different. Mixed colonies of survivors were settling on the abandoned worlds, creating new hybrid civilizations. It's like the galaxy is healing itself, she reported to the Emergency Council. These new settlements combine the best traits of multiple species. They're stronger together than any single civilization ever was. The ancient warning network that had once carried messages of despair was now broadcasting something completely different. Coordinates for rally points, supply drop locations, shared technology databases, and cultural exchanges. The survivors were not just fighting back, they were building something new together. Captain Park stood on the observation deck of the alien station, watching as another convoy of mixed-species ships departed to establish a new colony in a system that had been dead for 1,000 years. Humans worked alongside crystalline beings, aquatic creatures and energy entities, each contributing their unique abilities to the common cause. You did something remarkable, the station's AI told him. In all my millions of years of observation, no species has ever taught others to embrace chaos as a virtue. We didn't teach them chaos, Park replied, watching the ships disappear into hyperspace. We taught them hope. We showed them that impossible things can happen when you refuse to give up. The galaxy was no longer quiet. It rang with the voices of 100 species, all singing the same song in different languages, a song of defiance, of hope, and of the beautiful chaos that comes when different beings choose to stand together against the dark. The age of the Devourers was over. The age of the Alliance had begun.